Support for our podcast comes from Symphony 3, which has announced exciting news. It's launched its innovative Smart Glue platform on the AWS marketplace. That makes the secure and affordable integration solution accessible to government agencies worldwide. The platform includes over 50 pre-built connectors specifically designed for public sector systems, government APIs, enterprise solutions and AWS services to transform citizen experiences by breaking down data silos. Smart Glue delivers operational excellence for local governments through cost reduction, process optimization, improved decision-making and scalable architecture, all while maintaining comprehensive security and compliance standards required by public sector organisations. Get in touch to see how Symphony 3's expanded team and solutions can support your goals. Head to symphony3.com to find out more. Coming up on episode 500 of the Roundup, a new report of a toxic culture among former Brimbank councillors. A Victorian flood hazard rating system draws mixed reviews. The sad passing of a New South Wales council's general manager. A country mayor sounds the alarm over a disturbing crime trend. A council reversal leaves an industry in turmoil. Fresh accusations of misleading claims by former Townsville Mayor Troy Thompson. And a CEO admits his council needs to improve its community engagement. Hello, I'm Chris Eddy. This is the Local Government News Roundup, Australia's #1 local government podcast, brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, the national broadcaster on all things local government. With support from Symphony 3, simple, connected customer experiences, their Smart Glue platform now available worldwide on the AWS marketplace. Thank you for joining me. It's Monday, the 6th of October, 2025, and this, as I said, is episode number 500 of our regular news bulletins from the Local Government News Roundup. If you've been with us from day one, thanks so much for being part of the journey. We might take a look back at how it all started before we end today's podcast. Let's start, though, with our Victorian Roundup. And a newly released report has described a culture of toxic behaviour and governance issues among former councillors at Brimbank City Council. Municipal monitors Janet Dorr and Penelope Holloway found that some councillors engaged in what they described as abusive and bullying behaviour, causing mental distress to both senior staff and fellow councillors. The Monitors report has just been released to the public following the completion of their term in June. It details shocking incidents, including unfounded social media accusations, shouting and threats of retribution. A 10-point plan to improve governance has been proposed and has been adopted by the newly elected council. Mayor Tai Dang has acknowledged the report's findings, stating that significant progress has been made toward improved governance and pledging continued focus on this area. The Victorian Government has announced a new risk-based flood hazard rating system, similar to the bushfire danger rating system, to provide more accurate flood risk information and corresponding planning and building controls. The aim is to better inform development decisions, make insurance more transparent, and help direct future investments in emergency services and flood mitigation. Regional Cities Victoria welcomed news that catchment management authorities would lead flood modelling and engagement as a timely step, addressing its advocacy for state-level management of flood mapping. However, it stressed that successful implementation will require clear timelines and collaboration with local councils. A statewide approach to flooding and inundation is also one of the advocacy asks from One Gippsland in response to a national climate risk assessment showing an additional 1.5 million Australians would be in high-risk coastal areas by 2050 under current warming scenarios. Infrastructure Victoria CEO Jonathan Spear said the new system aligns with his organisation's recommendation that the government produce a common set of flood projections based on the latest climate data, and that it should then be used to update flood studies and maps to be applied in planning schemes. Melbourne Water will release updated flood mapping across Greater Melbourne over the next 2 years, starting with mapping released last week for the cities of Yarra and Darebin. Those updated maps show that tens of thousands of homes could potentially be affected by flooding during a once-in-a-century flood event. And Yarra Mayor Stephen Jolly is not happy with how the information was released, telling the ABC that the council was blindsided and that no funding has been committed to address ageing stormwater infrastructure. The council is investing over $4 million this year alone to maintain the city's drainage network to help reduce the risk of localised flooding. Darebin Council has reminded its residents that the mapping does not create or increase flood risk, but helps to better understand and manage existing risk. It said it would use the new flood information to reduce impacts of flooding through effective town planning, provision of stormwater drainage services, and proactive emergency preparedness and response. Warrnambool City Council is set to decide on selling 3 flood-prone properties in central Warrnambool. The council-owned homes on Koroit Street, purchased in the early 1990s due to flooding concerns, are now being considered for sale as a potential development opportunity. The properties have faced repeated flooding issues, and despite recent drainage improvements, insurance limitations remain due to past flood claims. Council officers have recommended selling all 3 properties together, hoping to attract a developer who could transform the site while addressing the existing flood risks. Central Goldfields Shire Mayor Grace Lavella has issued a strongly worded statement regarding ongoing negotiations with the state government about the Maryborough Vic Roads office. Councillor Lavella claims what was once a fully funded state service is becoming a cost-shifting exercise that the small rural council simply cannot afford. She's questioning why local councils are now being asked to shoulder financial responsibility for essential services after the 2022 partial privatisation of Vic Roads. Mildura Rural City Council Chief Executive Officer Martin Hawson says he's received direct assurances from Qantas that flights to and from the regional centre will not be affected by its decision to close a local crew base. The operational decision will affect pilots and cabin crew based in Mildura, but both the council and airport management have emphasised this will not impact scheduled services. In fact, according to Mildura Airport CEO Andrew Elliott, services are set to increase from late October, enhancing connectivity for both residents and visitors to the region. The Mayor of Hume City says it's time to name and shame illegal dumpers. Councillor Jared Bell said the council is determined to hold people accountable by showing vision on social media of real everyday people doing the wrong thing. The name and shame tactic is part of a broader Dob in a Dumper campaign that aims to reduce an annual clean-up cost of $5 million. And Monash City Council has announced it will introduce a separate waste charge based on full cost recovery starting from next July. Mayor Paul Clasari said the waste charge system aims to address rising waste management costs more fairly, with potential options for smaller bin sizes at lower price points for households generating less waste. More Victorian Council briefs. A Himalayan oak in Bright Cemetery, a 130-year-old rare specimen and one of only 9 known in Victoria, has been shortlisted for the Victorian Tree of the Year award. Alpine Shire Mayor Councillor Sarah Nicholas has encouraged community members to vote for the tree in the awards before the close of voting on the 23rd of October. Ballarat City Council has appointed an expert contractor to remediate the heritage-listed Bunanyong swimming baths walls in a conservation project expected to be completed by February. Greater Shepparton City Council will host the 82nd Murray-Darling Association National Conference in August next year, bringing together government representatives and delegates to discuss water resource management and showcase the region's agricultural innovations. And Greater Dandenong City Council's Our Street NPK activation in Noble Park has received national recognition at the Main Street Australia Awards, winning top prize for its vibrant community-centred initiatives that transform the area through art, lighting and inclusive programming. It's Monday, the 6th of October. This is the Local Government News Roundup, and it's the day that the Victorian Local Governance Association's councillor census hits email inboxes for every Victorian councillor. Your opportunity to have your say on all of the issues affecting your ability to be an effective local representative. And we'll find out more about the census, how it works and how it's used on an upcoming edition of VLGA Connect. Look out for that on YouTube and podcast. New episodes drop every Friday. Very sad news out of New South Wales. The community of Forbes Shire is mourning the death of the council's general manager of 8 years, Steve Lone, OAM. Mr. Lone passed away on the 28th of September after a health battle. He's being remembered for his lifetime commitment to local government and rural Australia, particularly in the development and growth of modern sale yards complexes. He was a chair and board member of Sale Yards Australia, livestock agents, breeders, stock horse and kelpie associations. A memorial service will be held at the Central West Livestock Exchange in Forbes on the 31st of October. The council's engineering director, Richard Jane, has stepped up as acting GM. Valet Steve Lone. The Mayor of Walgett, Jason Ramian, has declared enough is enough following a shocking armed robbery at the local swimming pool on Saturday. A 17-year-old boy is now in custody after allegedly threatening a mother with a machete in front of her 2 young children before stealing her car. The terrifying incident unfolded in full view of families enjoying the long weekend at the pool. Walgett Shire Council has condemned the attack. Mayor Ramian highlighted it as part of a disturbing trend in the community. After a week which included 2 separate home invasions, a car stolen which ended in a police pursuit, and 2 attempted break-ins. Council General Manager Andrew Brown, who is also a criminologist, is calling for sustainable investment in diversionary programs and crime prevention strategies rather than short-term solutions. The council is formally inviting Premier Chris Minns and senior officials to visit Walgett for direct discussions with the community about practical solutions. The pool was closed early following the incident on Saturday, with support being offered to traumatised staff and patrons. It reopened yesterday with free entry for the rest of the long weekend. The council called on people to come out in support of the town and its staff and demonstrate what community spirit in Walgett looks like. The timber industry in Nambucca Valley has been thrown into turmoil following the local council's decision to rescind its opposition to the Great Koala National Park. The controversial logging moratorium, enforced since the 8th of September, has left the valley's last remaining timber mill fighting for survival, according to the news of the area. Bowraville sawmill owner Matthew Dyer, who claims his business contributes around $3.7 million annually to the local economy, expressed frustration with the council's backflip. In a town of barely 1,000 people, the potential closure of the mill would deliver a significant economic blow. It came despite over 60 timber workers attending the council meeting in protest. When Councillor Susan Genvy's rescission motion passed, the gallery erupted, forcing Mayor Gary Lee to temporarily suspend proceedings. Councillor Genvy defended the moratorium, suggesting the timber industry had complicated matters by accelerating logging within the park's footprint at 4 times the rate of other areas last year. Hunters Hill Council has appointed experienced local government professional Nick Tobin as its new general manager. Mayor Zach Miles cited Nick's extensive senior executive leadership background in local government and his effective work as acting general manager since March this year. He's commenced a 5-year performance-based contract as of last week. Warren Shire Council is calling on residents to share their flood experiences as part of a comprehensive flood study now underway. The initiative, conducted by specialists Hydrospatial in partnership with the council, aims to map flood risks throughout Warren and strengthen future planning decisions. Mayor Greg Whiteley emphasised that personal stories are just as valuable as technical data. And Federation Council says it's made significant progress implementing recommendations from the University of Newcastle's independent review. 16 recommendations have been fully completed and 42 more are underway, according to its latest quarterly progress report. Mayor Cheryl Cook said the council's focus remains firmly on mandatory activities, followed by the maintenance and renewal of existing assets. More New South Wales Council briefs. Northern Beaches is undertaking major upgrades to 3 wharfs at Mackerel Beach, Bayview and Currawong, funded by federal and state government grants, along with additional council funding. The improvements will enhance accessibility, safety and functionality while protecting sensitive marine habitats. Narrabri Shire has launched a Proud of Our Patch initiative to combat vandalism and graffiti that damage public facilities and impact community enjoyment. The program encourages residents to report damage, take pride in shared spaces and participate in creative community art projects. And Narandra Shire Council is disappointed with the news that the historic East Street Post Office will not reopen after serving the community for over a century. Mayor Neville Kashenka said the council will work with Australia Post to find a centrally accessible permanent location for postal services in the town. That just happened to be a special edition of New South Wales Council Briefs from councils starting with the letter N. Now let's move on to Queensland, where former Mayor of Townsville, Troy Thompson, is facing fresh controversy over claims he may have exaggerated his medical history during his election campaign. Mr Thompson has now been questioned about his self-description as a cancer survivor, according to 9 News. The 54-year-old had previously told media about a serious illness where he lived off a tube for 9 months and was told to get affairs in order, though he never specifically mentioned cancer in those interviews. In a statement on social media, Mr Thompson has strongly rejected suggestions that his cancer survivor claims were misleading, insisting his experiences were personal but also real. This is all on top of scrutiny over his military, business and academic background, which is the subject of an as-yet unfinished Crime and Corruption Commission inquiry. Additionally, this morning, the Townsville Bulletin is reporting Mr Thompson's claims that he's filed a criminal complaint against the Queensland Premier, David Crisafulli, and local government minister Anne Ley, alleging distorting, mistreating, interference and threatening behaviour. Ms Ley has rejected those claims as unfounded and without evidence. They came in one of 3 social media videos on the weekend, described by the Bulletin as rambling. Mr Thompson intends to run in next month's by-election, and Ms Ley said the people of Townsville deserve the truth and will have their say on November 15. Sunshine Coast Council CEO John Baker has admitted his organisation needs to get better at community consultation, describing current practices as disrespectful to residents. Speaking at a Nambour Chamber of Commerce meeting, Mr Baker revealed his observations of consultation processes that lack meaningful engagement and pledged significant changes to how council interacts with the community. He said the council has largely been built predominantly for itself rather than effectively serving residents. In a Queensland first, the council has established a citizens panel of 53 randomly selected residents to provide community perspectives on key issues, including Olympic legacy planning and budget processes. The council is also implementing an enterprise model to break down departmental silos and improve efficiency in community interactions. Rockhampton Regional Council is distributing emergency kits to rural communities as part of Get Ready Queensland Week, a statewide initiative focused on disaster preparation. The kits contain essential supplies like first aid equipment, emergency radios and ready-to-eat meals to support isolated communities during emergencies. Douglas Shire is seeking funding from the Queensland State Government for a bin harmonisation program that will replace dark green lids with nationally compliant red lids across 4,721 households. If successful, the initiative will be implemented in partnership with Cleanaway, with rollout expected to take 4 to 6 months, prioritising high-density areas. Let's take in some extra news briefs. Mayor Peter Flannery of Moreton Bay has been appointed to the Host Mayors Advisory Group for the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games, where he'll help ensure the city is prepared for the international event. Former South Australian Local Government Association Chief Clinton Jury has announced his next gig. He'll be the new CEO of Vinnie's South Australia after a long association with their CEO Sleep Out program and as a member of its Commercial Advisory Committee. Kangaroo Island Council is seeking feedback on a proposal to install a penguin sculpture near Penneshaw Skate Park, featuring 3 penguins, the largest standing 2 metres high. The artist has requested council support for his grant application, after which the council will consider whether to issue a permit and take ownership of the sculpture. And Huon Valley Council's Manager of Environmental Sustainability will participate in the Tasmanian team, competing in the 2025 Disaster Challenge, one of only 3 national finalists for the event. The challenge brings together emerging talent from across Australia to develop innovative approaches to major natural hazards. To Western Australia as the clock ticks down to elections on the 18th of October, and Perth Now has reported on the race for the top job at the city of Coburn, which is intensifying with 4 current council members vying for the mayoral position. Long-serving Mayor Logan Howlett has held the position since 2009 and is facing challenges from within the council chamber, as Deputy Mayor Chantelle Stone and councillors Phoebe Cork and Philip Eva have all thrown their hats into the ring and are campaigning on a platform of change. Meanwhile, competition is equally fierce for council positions, with 8 candidates competing for just 2 seats in the Central Ward and contested races in both the East and West wards. Also from Perth now, Joondalup Council is fighting to fast-track the burial of overhead power lines, with residents in Perth's northern suburbs told they could be waiting more than a decade for underground power. Outgoing Mayor Albert Jacob described the push as a fight worth having, despite Western Power confirming that suburbs like Duncraig, Marmion and Padbury are unlikely to be considered for underground power programs for another 10 to 15 years. And the Shire of Narrogin is beginning an expression of interest process to potentially transition regional home care services to an external aged care provider. The council cites increased demand, changing Commonwealth funding and stricter regulatory requirements as reasons for the decision. Shire President Lee Ballard said no final decision has been made and the transition will only proceed if they can guarantee continuity of quality care, protection of local jobs and a seamless transition. And in the Northern Territory, an investigation into alleged fake how-to-vote cards during Darwin's recent council elections continues, with police reportedly conducting extensive interviews with witnesses. The NT News reported that some have been questioned for up to 5 hours. The controversy centres around unauthorised cards allegedly printed by mayoral candidate Leah Potter, who claims she produced them to assist fellow candidates Amy Un and Vicky Bonson, both of whom deny giving permission. The cards reportedly favoured now-elected Lord Mayor Peter Stiles, who's also denied any involvement in their production or distribution. No charges have been filed as the investigation continues. A quick look at some stories from beyond our shores in our global report. We're going across to New Zealand firstly, where Auckland Council has approved substantial pay rises for approximately 800 library workers. The Public Service Association has welcomed the decision as a step towards addressing pay equity issues, despite the current government cancelling a pay equity claim and making sweeping changes to the Equal Pay Act. Library workers will receive backdated increases from the 1st of September. Similar increases were granted to library workers at Christchurch City Council in June. Meanwhile, Auckland Mayor Wayne Brown has not so politely responded to the Auckland Ratepayers Alliance request for him to sign a pledge to keep rates increases low. In addition to the Mayor's succinct 2-word response, his spokesperson said the pledge was unrealistic and meaningless. Radio New Zealand reported that the Alliance wants all election candidates to oppose a rates increase that exceeds inflation and population growth measures. To the UK, and London Council Haringey has come under fire from the local government and social care ombudsman after a shocking discovery of more than 1,100 unread emails in the council's social work inbox, including 500 police reports. The Standard reported that the Watchdog's investigation was prompted by a case involving a vulnerable resident who suffered a life-changing injury after falling during a seizure. Despite multiple safeguarding alerts from a friend and emergency services, the council failed to provide assistance. The Ombudsman's chief executive said because of the council's inertia, the man at the centre of the case was left at risk of significant harm. Councillors have demanded explanations from senior officials about how the critical failure was allowed to happen. In the US, the federal government shutdown that began last Wednesday is already impacting states and localities by cutting funding for welfare, food assistance and other programs. Governing.com reported that the cuts are forcing authorities to consider using reserves or taking on debt to maintain services. Unlike past shutdowns, there's greater uncertainty about reimbursement for state and local governments, particularly for Liberal jurisdictions, while the prospect of permanent federal worker layoffs rather than temporary furloughs is adding further complications. In Plymouth, Massachusetts, a curious case of impersonation has made headlines. According to MassLive.com, a US Customs and Border Protection agent stationed at Boston Logan International Airport has been charged with identity fraud after allegedly posing as the town manager of Plymouth. Christopher Martin is accused of submitting a false complaint to police last December, claiming to be the town manager, Derek Brindisi, and demanding police action against residents decorating their vehicles with Christmas lights. The scheme unravelled when Police Chief Dana Flynn contacted the real town manager about the complaint, which Brindisi confirmed he never sent. Investigators later traced the email to Marden's work account. He's scheduled for arraignment later this month. And in Canada, council resistance to Ontario Premier Doug Ford's plan to eliminate speed cameras is growing. CTV News reported that Ottawa councillor Tim Turney is working closely with the mayor on a proposal to retain the cameras in school zones, after Brampton City Council voted unanimously last week to maintain their photo radar program despite provincial pressure. Ottawa's 60 speed cameras have generated $80 million in revenue since 2020, but more importantly, they've increased speed limit compliance from just 16% to 81% in camera zones. Premier Ford's alternative proposal would replace cameras with flashing signs by 2026. They've been dismissed by Tierney as ineffective Vegas-style signs that drivers eventually ignore. Before I leave you today, I did want to acknowledge that this is episode 500 of our regular news bulletins from the Roundup. Now, that numbering doesn't include special episodes like the Well-Travelled Executive series and our recent very popular look at generative AI in action in local government. Those are additional episodes on top of the 500. Who would have believed we'd still be going after nearly 5 years? The first episode came out on the 8th of March 2021. I thought it might be fun to have a look at what were the headline stories of that week of March in 2021. Remembering we were well and truly in the grip of COVID at the time. Local government elections were on the way in New South Wales, and the Minister of the time, Shelley Hancock, was warning of zero tolerance for petty politics and personal interests. She warned of harsh penalties, including suspension and disqualification from office, if people fail to uphold the high standards of behaviour expected by the community. Not sure we've made much progress on that one. Wingecarribee Shire was given 7 days to explain why it should not be suspended for 3 months, following worsening relations between councillors and senior staff. The City of Hobart announced the appointment of Kelly Grigsby as its new chief executive. Kelly was at the time the CEO of Wyndham, had been since 2015, and of course, flash forward to 2025, Kelly's back on the mainland as the CEO of the Municipal Association of Victoria. And of course, we've kept our finger on the pulse of senior executive moves around the sector since that time. On the 8th of March 2021, we were announcing Rosalind Way as the interim CEO of Hume City Council following the resignation of Dominic Isola after 13 years. Ms Way went on to take on the CEO position at Melton City Council, and of course Sheena Frost is the current CEO at Hume. It's been a challenge to keep up with all the news, but it has been fun, I must admit, and let's hope it continues. We're heading towards our 5th anniversary in March of next year. I want to thank Catherine Arndt and the Victorian Local Governance Association for showing the confidence that there maybe is an audience for a podcast like this. They've been with us as the principal sponsor since day one, and I'm very grateful for that too. And of course, to the folks at Symphony 3 who've come on board more recently as supporting sponsors of the podcast. Hope you'll stay with us. Much more to come here on the Local Government News Roundup. And I will be back on Wednesday with episode number 501. I hope you can be with us then. Thanks again to the VLGA and Symphony 3 for their support for the podcast. Thank you to those who do support the podcast through an ongoing subscription. It starts at $3 per month, around $5 Australian. You can cancel at any time, and it's greatly appreciated. You'll find out the details in your podcast player or on our website. That's also where you'll find a transcript with story links for any of today's stories that you'd like to follow up on in more detail. The Local Government News Roundup is recorded in the city of Greater Geelong, Victoria, on the land of the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. We come your way every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and I will be back on Wednesday. Until then, thanks for listening, and bye for now. The VLGA's Victorian Councillor Census is back again in 2025. All councillors in Victoria will be emailed the census on the 6th of October and will have until the end of the month to complete. In its second year, the annual census captures and tracks councillor demographics, attitudes and the key challenges to local governance over time. You don't need to be a VLGA member to participate, and at no stage will the VLGA have access to an individual's responses. The findings of the census will inform, influence and lead conversations across local government and with other tiers of government, and all responses will be fully confidential. This is your chance to have your voice heard as a councillor. The Councillor Census is part of the VLGA's commitment to support councillors on their journey to be successful community representatives.